Forgoing all the domestic and international politics, let us presume Tigray got its independence. Here are key questions to ask. What resources does Tigray region have to offer? How would it build its economy? With what neighbors or foreign entities would it trade with, or create relations with? How would it navigate international politics? A fundamental element for any country is to have a functioning and sustainable economy and a healthy geopolitical relation. Tigray region does not have any resources to build and sustain a lasting functioning economy. It does not produce or have any meaningful natural commodities such as wheat, cotton, coffee, oil, and so forth. While there have been explorations particularly in mining for gold, silver, and copper, nothing meaningful has ever been achieved or produced to change or build Tigray economy. Closely tied with resources, Tigray region has for centuries suffered from the arid climate. Much of the land is not arable, and the minute arable land is not sufficient enough to guarantee food security for the Tigray people. Causes of drought coupled with lack of local economy and decades of war has resulted in repeated famines in Tigray. Even when the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, was at the helm of power in Ethiopia and had billions of dollars in its banks, it had to subsidize close to 3 million people annually, which is half of the Tigray population. Thus, Tigray has never had any meaningful resources or a functioning economy to become independent. Perhaps two equally important elements in addition to resources are Tigray geopolitics and its relations to its neighbors. Tigray region has no access to coastal areas. It is a landlocked region, and for decades the TPLF has made it a policy to make enemies out of its neighbors on all four fronts. It has bought enemies for the Tigray people by pitting them against the Ethiopian people, and more specifically with ethnic groups such as Amharas, Afars, Gurgays, Oromos and so on. It has also made enemies with the Eritrean people. In this current war it provoked and instigated, the TPLF has committed all sorts of atrocities against all of its neighbors, particularly to Amhara, Afar and Eritrean people. Beginning with the Amhara people, for the last 45 years, the TPLF classified the Amhara people in its manifesto as the #1 enemy of the Tigray people. And for the last 30 years, it used its power to consistently commit genocide against the Amhara people. In the recent war, TPLF leader Getachew Reda specifically stated that he would make the Amhara pay for the war. And the TPLF has taken an offensive approach, further going deep into Amhara region and engaging in massacres, rapes, and heavy looting. It is sending tens of thousands of untrained child soldiers in waves, hoping to overwhelm the Amhara people and the Ethiopian military. Its hope is to destabilize and impoverish Amharas, hoping they do not become a threat. This recent attack further severs any possible salvageable relations with Amharas. But the Afar people, TPLF deprived them for the last 27 years. Afar is the least developed region in Ethiopia, and it had been the policy of TPLF to completely impoverish the Afar people, and even worse, it forcibly annexed a large chunk of their land. In the current war, it has massacred thousands of Afar civilians and displaced tens of thousands. Just a few weeks ago it massacred 300 Afar civilians at Galakoma refugee camp alone. It has committed ethnic cleansing, rape, and looting on the Afar people. The Afar people are now fighting as a people, and they want nothing to do with the Tigray people. It has completely damaged its relations with the Afar people by waging war on the Afar front and attacking civilians. To the north, the TPLF has also damaged its relations with Eritrean people. Prior to the 1998 war, TPLF ethnic cleansed Eritreans from Ethiopia and looted their properties and businesses. After a bloody war that cost Ethiopia tens of thousands of lives, it occupied Eritrea's Badme city for 20 years. In the current war, TPLF launched several missiles into Eritrea, clearly showing its hostile intention. Furthermore, it has been hunting down and massacring Eritreans in refugee camps. In one refugee camp alone, Tigray rebels killed 300 Eritrean refugees in the most barbaric manner, cutting their limbs, gouging their eyes, and beheading them. This has been confirmed by international organizations such as Human Rights Watch and United Nations. Getachew Reda has publicly stated that they will not rest until they have settled scores with Eritrea. In other words, destroying Eritrea has become a strategical goal. Its recent attack on Eritrea has reinforced the enmity between the two people. While there are many ample reasons why Tigray region is a country unsustainable, these three fundamental reasons alone are glaring realities the Tigray people will have to confront. Forgoing all the impossible realities on the ground, let us presume Tigray gets its independence, and suppose both Ethiopia and Eritrea ban the use of their borders. What would Tigray do? Even worse, what would they do if both countries ban Tigray region from using their airspace? And even harsh reality is, what if Ethiopia and Eritrea create a confederation? Tigray region would effectively become the second country next to Lesotho to be surrounded by countries. It would be a country within a country with completely no outlet. As per Getachew Reda's recent words to VOA, the only way Tigray can survive is if Ethiopia is destroyed as a country. With the death of Ethiopia, they hope to somehow build Tigray. This is not a theory, but an actually planned TPLF had under its Greater Tigray agenda since the 1970s. In its manifesto, it planned on taking fertile lands from Amhara lands, which it did from the northern Gondar and Willow regions, and then annexing Afar lands to the west, and creating access to the Red Sea. That plan as of now has been crushed. Amharas are now in control of their indigenous lands, particularly in western Gondar and northern Willow. And the Afar people are fighting back, and are claiming back some of their lands TPLF had stolen, let alone secede any lands. TPLF's plan has backfired. Therefore, independence for the Tigray people is almost impossible. Even if they were to win the war, constructing a functioning economy and sustaining it is almost impossible. On top of that, they have to contend with realities of their land lacking resources and being susceptible to drought and famine. The TPLF's ideology and politics has cornered the Tigray people in a corner they cannot get out of. Thus, what is the alternative? The alternative is for the Tigray people to come up with a new ideology, a new thinking, and a new political approach that is geared towards coming up with solutions rather than confrontations. The TPLF political solution is still war. Its current strategic goal to saving Tigray people is by destroying Ethiopia and Eritrea. It hopes by creating and weakening the two countries, it will somehow come back to power or have better leverage. Its solution is to fight all the way to the end, so much so that it has made sure to forcibly recruit every Tigray person. It has forcibly recruited women, children, teenagers, priests, doctors, and so on. It has effectively turned the war into a people's war. TPLF is hoping to overwhelm the Ethiopian military and Amhara forces. However, after Tigray rebels massacred civilians in Amhara and Afar region, it has created great anger. Both regions have now called for the complete mobilization of their entire populations. With hundreds of thousands of people mobilizing, despite being in an extremely and unwinnable position, TPLF does not seek to negotiate or even change its position. On the contrary, the TPLF is invading towns and cities, killing, looting, and sending threats. It is further exacerbating the situation. The TPLF has an extremely myopic view. Such ideology seems delusional and even suicidal. The Tigray people need an alternative political ideology and a new political program if they wish to survive as a people. Tigray people need new leaders with fresh ideas that will solve their political quagmire swiftly.